And big breaking news just coming in. Sports Ministry has suspended the newly formed WFI body. The Sports Ministry's big move comes amid the wrestlers' strong protest. The Wrestling Federation of India, the newly elected body, has been suspended. A statement by the Sports Ministry has said that the decisions of the WFI are being made in a hasty manner. The new body seems to be in control of ex-office bearers. The Sports Ministry has instructed the newly elected Wrestling Federation of India to suspend all of its activities. The statement says that the government has noted that the newly elected body is being run by the former office bearers, including Brijbhushan Sharan Singh, who's been in the eye of the storm. The business of the federation seems to be run from the premises controlled by former office bearers, which is also the alleged premises where the sexual harassment of the players has been alleged. And at present, the court is hearing the matter of the sexual harassment. But the big news right now, the Sports Ministry has suspended the working of the WFI. And Nikhil is joining me live on this story. Nikhil, big breaking news this coming in that the WFI's work has been suspended. A lot of serious allegations regarding the working of the WFI and the control of former officials on the WFI. What more do we know?
Well, Anisha, I think it's an interesting development because just to give you a bit of a background, the Indian wrestling body, they had their elections a few days ago. And Sanjay Singh was democratically elected back. But everyone knew that he was a proxy for the former president, that was Brijbhushan Sharan, who has serious charges against him. Those charges are still under investigation. You knew that the wrestlers that had been protesting, the likes of, Sakshi Malik, who's an Olympic medal winner, Bajrang Punia, who's an Olympic medal winner, they weren't happy with the way things were being done at the federation. But then Sanjay Singh wins that election, comes out and says, and quite brazenly at that, you have Brijbhushan Sharan also, even though now he cannot participate because he himself, wasn't eligible to participate. But he put his proxy in. He came out victorious and carried that plaque quite brazenly at that, saying, Dabdaba tha, dabdaba rahega. Almost, like rubbing it into the faces of the wrestlers who were protesting against him not being elected. In fact, even rubbing it into the faces of the government in that sense, saying that, listen, you can do whatever you want, but we will still come back to power. And we've come back to power now democratically with a fair election that were held. And there were no question marks about the elections. And even now, those questions haven't been raised. But I think this is a very smart move by the government because for the last few days, you saw Sakshi Malik saying that, I do not want to continue wrestling. Bajrang saying that, listen, you take back the Padma award that you gave me, telling the government that if you cannot sort this wrestling mess out, then I do not want to have the award that you've given him. And those were serious, issues that were cropping up for the government to deal with. And I think they've done it very, very smartly now because what they've done is as soon as the new body was elected, and I repeat, they were elected democratically, so you could not take any action against the way they were elected. But what you did is at the first instant, as soon as they made their first mistake, and the first mistake, and just let me dwell on that, what is that first mistake that they made? That they announced the trials for the under 15 and under 20 national trials they announced. And they said that these trials have been announced because you have not given them the sufficient time that you needed to give them to announcing those trials. So you needed to have an executive committee meeting first up. So the executive committee meeting needed to happen and they needed to give a 15-day notice for that executive committee meeting to happen. And then you needed a 1/3 of that quorum to be present, the majority to be present. Then you could have, in a right manner, decided that we need to then have these under 15 and under 20 trials. So what the government then points out that you did not do this. This is part of the constitution. So you have defied the constitution. You have also defied the sports code. This is exactly what was said now. This is the first thing, and I'm just, giving you all the details as to what has happened. The first thing, the first mistake they made. Now, you needed to have that executive committee meeting. You could have given them a 7-day notice as well. This is what they go on to mention, that a 7-day notice could have been done for an emergency executive committee meeting. Even that wasn't done. So forget about a regular executive committee meeting. Even a 7-day notice for an emergency executive committee meeting was not done. So these are grave, dissuasions that you have done at the moment. And because of that, you have now flouted the rules that were set by the sports code that has already been said. You haven't done that. You have flouted those rules. That's the first important thing that you have done. And they've also said in that press release, and that's very clear, that there is a clear sort of interference from people that should not be there. They've not taken Brijbhushan Sharan's name, but they clearly point that out. There is outside interference in the way that the Wrestling Federation is functioning, and because it is now beyond the scope of the sports code, you're defying the sports code, and you are not also following the Wrestling Federation of India's constitution. Based on that, the Wrestling Federation has now been suspended. So as I said right at the start, they did it very, very smartly. To begin with, they could not directly remove that democratically elected body that they had selected, but they waited for them to make that first wrong move, which they did in announcing the trials of the under 15 and under 20. And as soon as they did that, the government stepped in and then followed the protocol, followed the rules, and have now announced that the federation is suspended. In that sense, you could say that while it's not happened directly, it is a victory for those athletes, the wrestlers that had been protesting, that had been distressed with what was happening at the Wrestling Federation. And in a sense, it may not be directly, but indirectly, the help of the government that has helped them in a way, sort of restore order. Okay, I believe also joining me is now my colleague Rahul Rawat. Rahul, what more can you tell us on this?
Well, Nikhil, I just spoke to Bajrang Punia, of course, the Olympic medalist from the last Olympic Games, who had made it very clear that he is going to return his Padma Shri. And he said if things do go as what they wanted, they are ready to take back those decisions that they've already made. Like, for example, for him, that Padma Shri Sakshi also had quit. In fact, the last press conference that they did, she had quit wrestling. That is what she said. But this is very significant because this is perhaps the most scathing response from the government so far, and the WFI gave them ample opportunity because, as you said, they did flout the sports code, the guidelines laid down as per the constitution of the Indian Olympic Association, the Wrestling Federation of India. But look at the brazenness. The first opportunity that they get, they announce the age group competition, but also the venue of those competitions, Gonda. And we know what Gonda is to wrestling and to the former WFI president Brijbhushan Sharan Singh, and also the government has made it loud and clear that the current WFI is being controlled and is being run from an office of the former office bearers. Of course, they didn't mention Brijbhushan Sharan Singh's name, but this is the very same office where Brijbhushan Sharan Singh has been accused of sexually harassing these female wrestlers. So that is what has happened, and we've heard the sports minister, people from the government, people from the sports ministry in the last 11 odd months, where they have said that they are going to take actions and they are going to look into the matter. But this is the most scathing response that has come from the government, and I think now they have decided that enough is enough, that we need to end this debate once and for all. And the WFI, just to let our viewers know, WFI is already a suspended body, and people thought that the moment the WFI they get the new office bearers after the elections on 21st of this month. Well, things will fall in place. They will get the recognition from the international body, but it is status quo. The sports ministry has made it very clear that all activities will remain suspended and till further orders. So, which means they will decide the future course of action. Now, whether again the ad hoc committee will take over or they will seek fresh elections, because it has happened in the past. You would remember the Indian Olympic Association when when Abhay Chautala was elected as the president, the international body and the government were not too keen at that time also. So things, government will now decide the future course of action. But I think more or less the government has made it very clear that we will stop this once and for all.
No, but the problem with this is, as we mentioned right at the start, Rahul, that it is in a way a government stepping in, waiting for the new elected body to make the first strong move and then follow due protocol and then suspended them. If they were to announce fresh elections or take matters into their own hands, the only problem I see with that is, does not that amount to government interference going forward? Because the world body, even the IOC is never appreciative of this fact that any sort of government across the world has any sort of influence on any sporting body, which are supposed to be independent and follow their own constitution. If the government is to step in and take those steps and in a sense decide the future course of action, will that not be detrimental for Indian wrestling? Because the international body then might not recognize the Indian Federation, whatever new shape or form it takes, following from here and following the diktat of the government.
Well, Nikhil, you would remember. In fact, I was listening to your conversation only with PT Usha, who now heads the Indian Olympic Association, and you would remember you asked her about this very issue, and she said the day the elections get over, we have an elected body of Wrestling Federation of India. The next day, we will speak to UWW, that is the international wrestling body, and we will get the recognition from them. That's one thing. But what you are saying is also right. In fact, the Indian Olympic Association elections that I just mentioned were the IOA was also suspended only and only because of the government interference. Because Indian Olympic Associations, all these federations, they are an autonomous body, and the international bodies or the International Olympic Committee, they do not allow any sort of infringement from the outside bodies or the governments. But in this particular case, and you also know that India is no longer a sitting duck. And has its influence in the world body as well. So, and so does Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. He also has that kind of influence. But as of now, government can all. The only issue here is time, because in July, August, you will have the Olympic Games, and you also have the Olympic trials coming up in next few months. So the Indian wrestlers, unfortunately, they are the ones who are going to suffer the most. But I think government is very well aware of the timeline, what they have now that they have decided. Now they have decided that they are going to take some serious actions against the elected body, and perhaps Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. They know the timeline and they will decide, and more or less they have decided what will happen and how it will happen.
Okay. Stay on with us. This is the big story at the moment. The Wrestling Federation of India has been suspended. This after just a few days of the elections taking place. A new president in Sanjay Singh there at the helm of the Wrestling Federation. The government has cited a few steps that have been taken by the newly elected body, which they call arbitrary at the moment and not following due protocol. We also spoke to one of the faces of this wrestlers protest, Vinesh Fogart, a wrestler of repute that's won India medal at the international level a short while ago. She spoke to India Today. Let's listen in.
देखिए, मतलब हम एज ए रेसलर भी लगा लीजिए, एज ए वुमन खिलाड़ी लगा लीजिए, अगर हम हार रहे हैं तो देश की महिलाएं, मतलब किसी भी फील्ड में लगा लीजिए, आवाज उठाने में बहुत सालों लग जाएंगे. हम स्टार्टिंग से ये बात कर रहे हैं. WFI में कोई ऐसे लोग आने चाहिए जो मतलब रेसलर्स के लिए भी अच्छा हो, खासकर महिलाओं के लिए अच्छा हो. हमारी लड़ाई सिर्फ यही है कि महिलाएं सुरक्षित होनी चाहिए. जो हम लोगों ने जो झेला है इतने सालों तक, वो आने वाले बच्चे ना झेलें. बस सिर्फ इतनी सी लड़ाई है हमारी, और जिन्होंने गलत किया उनको सजा मिलनी चाहिए.
विनेश, लेकिन खुलकर बोले, आज तक है ये पूरा देश नहीं पूरी दुनिया सुन रही है आपको. संजय सिंह से क्या परेशानी थी?
सर संजय सिंह बिल्कुल आप देख लीजिए, इलेक्शन के बाद में जैसे ही संजय सिंह जीतते हैं, वो किसके घर पे गए हैं, किसके गले में मालाएं डाली हुई थी। संजय सिंह तो साइड में खड़े हुए थे, मालाएं किसी और के उसमें डाली हुई थी। जो उनके वर्डिंग थे वो इतने दबदबा है काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, मतलब वो बिल्कुल क्लियरली इंडिकेट कर रहा है कि वो दिखा रहे हैं कि देखो मैं राजा हूँ यहाँ का और मेरे आगे कुछ भी नहीं चलता, मैं भगवान हूँ।
मतलब जो पोस्टर्स लगे थे कि दबदबा था, दबदबा है, कायम रहेगा।
जी, मतलब एक किसी भी प्रेसिडेंट का बनना, या जो पूर्व में प्रेसिडेंट भी रहा है ना, उनके मुंह से ये बातें सुनना, मतलब वो क्या दिखा रहा है ना। वो एक
मतलब संजय सिंह ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह के बेहद करीबी हैं, इसलिए
सर वो करीबी क्या, मतलब उनके बच्चे, उनके लड़के से भी ज्यादा खास है वो उनके। इतने सालों तक वो खुद ही बता रहे हैं, हमें बताने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, वो खुद बता रहे हैं हमारे इतने सालों से संबंध रहे हैं। तो वो संजय सिंह का बनना मतलब कि लगा लो ब्रजभूषण का ही बनना है दोबारा।
Okay, you heard from Vinish Phogat there, spelling out what is the issue with the newly elected president. And she said it's not the fact that the new president is close to the outgoing president against whom there have been serious charges, Brijbhushan Sharan. It's not that he's close to him. He's effectively his proxy. Effectively, Brijbhushan Sharan is still pulling the strings, still running the wrestling federation. And she points out very interestingly that you should have heard the words that came out after the elections. Brijbhushan Sharan wasn't even participating in those elections. His business associate in Sanjay Singh stood for that position. And there was a plaque that they carried at that time, which said in exact words that I'm going to quote, Dabdaba tha, Dabdaba hai, quite brazenly saying that we controlled wrestling federations earlier, and we'll continue to have the control of the wrestling federations. Come what may, do whatever you want, whatever the wrestlers could say, we're still in control. And in fact, even after that election result came out, Brijbhushan Sharan came and spoke about that victory. So in that sense, you may have had a new president, but in all sense, it is the same man that is running everything behind the scenes, which is why this new decision that has been taken by the government is being hailed by one and all. And a few very important points I'd like to point out on our broadcast. Just listen to the wordings that have been used in the press release. This is the press release sent by the Sports Ministry, where they say the business of the federation is being run from the premise controlled by the former office bearers, which is also which is also alleged premise wherein sexual harassment of the players have been alleged, and presently the court is hearing the matter. So that's very important bit that they point out, that the business is actually happening from Gonda, from Brijbhushan Sharan's house. The other thing they write in that press release, again scathing comments, where they say the decision made by the newly elected body demonstrates a blatant disregard for the established legal and procedural norms, violating both the WFI's constitutional provisions and the National Sports Development Code. So saying openly the new federation is flouting the sports code as well as the constitution of the Wrestling Federation of India. The moot point being that they have announced under 15, under 20 trials without even having a meeting of the executive committee, without even giving them any sort of notice, without giving the wrestlers any sort of notice, which you need to do basis on the constitution of the Wrestling Federation. And the third bit, which is very important, they say the actions smack of complete arbitrariness on part of the president, which is against the settled principles of good governance and devoid of transparency and due process. Adherence to governance norms is vital for ensuring fair play, transparency, and accountability. These are crucial to build trust among athletes, stakeholders, and the public. So clearly saying that this is arbitrariness that is happening at the Wrestling Federation of India, and something needs to be done. As a footnote, they've mentioned that let's not forget that the world body has still continued to suspend the Indian body despite the elections having taken place. So nothing has changed on the international front. That's where they're suspending the current body that has been elected. So that's the big breaking story that we're breaking on India today.